back to McGlynn Videos here. So I wanted to go over angle grinders today. You know, in industrial processes we go over the bench grinder, and that's great, but it really doesn't cover angle grinders at all. And you know, angle grinders are something that you're bound to use sometime if you work in industry. So there's a lot of different things that go along with this, and so I just start with the basic angle grinder here. So this is a corded 8-inch angle grinder. 8 inches would be the diameter of the grinding wheel when it's brand new. Obviously, as it wears down, it's going to be less than that. This angle grinder has a trigger control right here, and this is a bigger one. Angle grinders come in 4s, 4.5s, 6s, 7s, and 9s. So there's lots of different sizes. 4.5s and 7s are usually the most common that you'll run into, and that's what we have in the shop. We just have all 4.5s and then a couple 7s. Something like this probably weighs about 3 pounds, 3 or 4 pounds. So it's got some weight to it, and it's kind of like holding a small chainsaw. Go to something like this. You know, this would be a 4.5-inch angle grinder. So here we have a 4.5-inch corded. This is a paddle type, so this one's got a paddle switch on it. Much easier to control, much lighter. This one's probably half, and all of half of what this one is. These both spin really fast. They both spin at the same speed, and I believe that speed is about 11,000 RPM. So we're really cooking with this thing. 11,000 rotations per minute. That's how many times the disc turns around on. We also have, you know, cordless angle grinders, and these are 4.5-inch cordless angle grinders, and these work great for doing small stuff. But you know, the amount of power that you use with an angle grinder is a lot, so the batteries go dead pretty fast on these things if you're trying to do prolonged work with them. But they are really handy if you just have to grind a spot clean or remove some rust or something, or make a small cut. Okay. So next I want to go over, you know, what the possible attachments are in the angle grinder. So there's two most common that we run into here is we have a grinding disc. So here we have a grinding disc, and this is a 7-inch grinding disc. Here's a, oh, that's the wrong one there. Sorry, let me get it size. Here's a 4.5-inch grinding disc that's been used a little bit. If you look at this, you can see that there's a threaded mesh that holds this whole thing together. It's got way more lateral strength than like a wheel on a bench grinder does. That way it doesn't fly apart and explode. Now that can still happen if these things are handled wrong. These grinding wheels can still explode if you drop them or if you're not careful with them. So it's something to be aware of, but the odds of that happening with these things are far less than they are with if they're exposed to any kind of impact or anything like that than a bench grinder would. Okay, so these would be regular grinding wheels. We also have a cutoff wheel. Here's a 4.5-inch cutoff wheel. So you look at the cutoff wheel, it's much skinnier than the grinding wheel, just to give an example there. These both serve different functions. A grinding wheel is for just what it sounds, grinding. And so when you grind with an angle grinder, you grind with it like this. You literally have the thing at an angle, and you're grinding like this to remove material. Cutoff wheel is a little bit different. Cutoff wheel is for cutting. So really what this is it's like a chop saw, a miniature chop saw. The wheel spins like this, then you're going to rotate against it. I'm going to show you the difference here on a piece of steel. So I got this 12-gauge piece of steel right here. I'm just going to put it in the vise, and I have a grinding wheel loaded up in this one right here. And so I'll come at this with the grinding wheel, and we'll maybe do a little, and then we'll go like this. Okay. So can you come over here, Dina? You can see what we did to our piece here with that grinding wheel. Now we got a pretty thin piece of metal right here, But the grinding wheel, I mean, we put some abuse on it. I pushed down when I was grinding to make the sparks, and I came down like this. A cutoff wheel is kind of like a potato chip. It's got way more strength like this than it does if I try to bend it or break it. So a cutoff wheel, we can't do grinding like this. We can only do perpendicular cuts with it. That means we want to be 90 degrees to the face of it. So I'll do a cut with a cutoff wheel here. And Dino gets set up again. And cutoff wheel, we'll do 90-degree cuts. Okay, I didn't cut it all the way off because I'm hoping Dino will come back in here again, and I'm sure she will, and we'll take a look at the difference here between the two. So you can see the one on the right's the one I did with the angle grinder, the one on the left's the one I did with the cutoff wheel. We get a nice straight cut. That's the difference. Cutoff wheel is not made for grinding, it's made for cutting. If you try to grind with a cutoff wheel, you'll break it, and then we have $5 or $6 down the drain. Okay. Another tool that we use on the angle grinder is a cut brush. This is a knotted wire brush. So really what this is, it's like a wire brush on steroids. We use this for cleaning up metal if we're going to paint it, or if we have to get it really clean because we're going to weld it or something. The cut brush works great for removing scale and rust and paint off of metal. It works fantastic. The cut brush throws a lot of material. As you can see, all of these things, there's sparks flying everywhere. So safety stuff with an angle grinder, number one, you need to make sure you're aware of your surroundings. If there's people all around you, you shouldn't be using an angle grinder. It's just too dangerous. Personal protective equipment, at the minimum you should have safety glasses on. If you're going to do some pretty heavy stuff, you should probably wear a face shield. And you know, I often wear gloves when I'm angle grinding because the metal gets hot from grinding it. So if I have to move something, I will wear gloves when I'm angle grinding also. This thing really throws the metal, or really throws material. I've had students get hit with flecks of metal from this cut brush more than anything else. So if you ever use one of these, be careful. One time about 10 years ago, I was using one of these things, and I didn't have my shirt tucked in, and I leaned over and the cut brush caught my shirt, and it wound up and went right into my stomach. Now luckily I had a good shirt on, because it knotted up and stopped the tool and just made it so the motor was in a stall position, and I didn't get hurt by it, and I reached over and unplugged it. But if I would have had, you know, a poor shirt on, I definitely would have been grinding it or wire brushing some skin off of my body. That would have been very painful and could have caused a very serious injury. Notice all of these tools have the guards on them. That's to protect you. When you're holding a grinder, your fingers are awfully close to where the action happens here. And so if you don't have that guard on and your hands slip, boy, they're going to go into that wheel, and grinders are made for grinding metal. So human flesh is just like grinding through butter. So make sure that you have your guards installed on the piece that you're using, and make sure you're holding it like you mean it. Don't hold the grinder with one hand, two hands on it at all times. Okay? That should about cover it for grinders. I'll see you on the next video, everybody. Thank you.